What's going on, fellow A-plussers? It is I, your host, as always, Adam Perez, certainly coming through once again with a brand new episode of the A-Plus Hero Report. As we are going to go ahead and dive into I was going to say the newest episode of Obi-Wan Kenobi, but since the series has officially wrapped, today, ladies and gentlemen, we're certainly going to go ahead and give you our series review of the Obi-Wan Kenobi series, set as a limited series, but it seemingly there seems to be an opportunity here maybe for a second season. We'll definitely go ahead and dive into it. But today, guys, we're just going to be spoiler free talking about this particular series. We had 6 episodes with the returning Ewan McGregor and Hayden Christensen to go ahead and play Obi-Wan Kenobi along with Darth Vader in here. We had Deborah Chow as the director of this series along with Joby Harold as its writer. And now that the 6 episodes are in fact wrapped up, we are certainly here to go ahead and dive into this review. So the pros, the cons, our overall thoughts on this particular episode or particular series. And listen, guys, remember, at the end of the day, these are simply just our A-plus opinions. We always want to know yours, though. So definitely go ahead and let us know your thoughts in regards to Obi-Wan Kenobi in the live chat or the comment section box below. And feel free to certainly join our discussion and certainly give your thoughts. And we'll certainly try and get into the live chat from time to time and certainly pick out a few comments whenever we certainly can. So it's not just myself. No, I got my other Star Wars nerd buddy here with me to go ahead and break down this series. Good old Stewart Branscombe in the house. What's up, buddy? Good to see you, man.
Totally forgot I was muted. My bad. What's up? How's it going?
Good, man. Good, man. Thank you very much for certainly coming through. We didn't get a chance to do an Obi-Wan review together, did we?
No. I think like every time you were doing the reviews, that was when like I either had work or just something else going on. But I have seen a lot of your reviews, and I do like I can't remember any opinions you had that I disagreed with. I think for the most part, we might actually be mostly on the same page with this, but I'll test that theory in this overall review for sure.
Yeah, this episode will definitely test that to see if me and Stuart are certainly on the same page in regards to that. Live shout out real quick to a good old Marcelino for certainly joining us here today. Thank you very much for certainly coming through, man. I know you definitely have been checking out the Obi-Wan Kenobi series. So let's go ahead and get into it. Listen, Stuart, I'm going to start off with you here because everybody, for the most part, if they have been watching me on a weekly basis, they know majority of my thoughts, I feel like, when it comes to Obi-Wan. So let me ask you before we go ahead and get into my side of things. Overall, what was your impression of Obi-Wan Kenobi?
Trying to think of how to say this without like giving too much of my thoughts, because it's going to be like kind of one of the questions that you brought up later on. So I think overall, I think that the story was great. I thought some of the acting and characters were really good, really well fleshed out. And it's just so bizarre because it had such amazing elements, but I still feel like as a series, it wasn't executed as well as I think it could have been. And I think there were a few obvious changes, and I'll get into those like a little bit later on. There are a few small changes they could have made to kind of at least tweak it to make it a little bit better. Or, there's just one really simple change they should have done, what it should have been from the beginning, that I think, and again, I'm going to save that for later, that I think would have really made this a much more solid, would have made this much more solid overall.
If you had to grade it, since you did enjoy the series, what would you put a letter grade to it?
Man, that's a good question. I think I'm going to go B minus. If I'm giving it a letter grade, definitely B minus, I think.
Okay, nice report card. Nice report card, man. My overall thoughts, for the most part, pretty much almost line up with you, man. I actually enjoyed the series. There were some really fantastic moments in here that I certainly walked away from. I enjoyed myself certainly watching it. I do think that it certainly could have been executed better. Like I think my expectations and maybe the expectations of a lot of Star Wars fans were pretty high for this. And I think what Joby Harold kind of delivered us was maybe not peak Obi-Wan Kenobi that I think we feel could have a story told, but I think for the most part, they really did a pretty good job in regards to telling the story that they needed to tell. And one of the questions that I was kind of asking myself after watching this series was this series necessary, right? Like, did it move the story forward in any way, considering the fact that we already know what happens when we get to A New Hope. And at least for me, I enjoyed it in the sense of getting to see Obi-Wan's journey, how he's handled himself over the past 10 years since we've certainly last seen him, and really all the emotion that really goes into this confrontation that he has here with Darth Vader. Again, I think a solid and enjoyable story, something that I certainly walked away from enjoying, had a really good time watching it. But there was always something in the back of my head I kept saying to myself, I really feel like they could have executed this better, or the writing could have been a little bit better, because I do feel like there were some inconsistencies there and maybe some questionable character decisions certainly along the way. So not perfect by any stretch of the imagination, but for me, quite satisfying and pretty enjoyable, man. I had some really great moments in this series.
Yeah, as for the question of whether or not it's necessary, I would say that in a few ways, yeah. Number one, being Obi-Wan's character as a whole, because we when we last see him at the end of Revenge of the Sith, he seems completely broken, and he just doesn't at all like seem like obviously the headcanon that you could go with is that time heals, of course. And that's why when we see him in Ben Kenobi, he's no longer, or we see him as Ben Kenobi, sorry, in A New Hope, he's no longer beating himself up. He's, trying to seemingly repeat the same patterns that he did with the Anakin, but now with Luke Skywalker. So the big question kind of comes in as, how was Obi-Wan really able to forgive himself after that whole chunk of time? And I think that's what this series does a really good job of addressing, like how he goes from being kind of the broken man that you'd think a person in his position would be in, to suddenly being the old wise man that all the young Jedi look up to again. That same general that we knew from the Clone Wars.
Yeah, I absolutely would agree with you there. If I had to give a grade, I'm kind of hovering between B and B minus myself. I wonder if I'm giving it a B minus in the sense of maybe I'm a little bit too nitpicky at times. So maybe I'm kind of sitting solidly on a B. But I think initially, my first initial thought is definitely a B minus also. I'm talking like 80, 83 on a test score type of thing. So yeah, definitely passable and enjoyable for me as well. One of the three questions I do want to go ahead and ask Stewart, just to go ahead and kick this off before we even get into our pros and cons. First, considering how we feel about this particular series, should this have been a movie?
Yes, that was actually kind of the big change that I was kind of hinting at when I was giving my overall thoughts. Because yeah, I think again the story is what really got me interested. That's what kept me tuning in every week. It wasn't just because it was Star Wars and it was Kenobi. It was like I actually really did enjoy the story that they were giving us. I really loved a lot of the actors a lot of the performances that we got. I know that Third Sister has been, the actress that plays her has been getting like a lot of undeserved harassment, but whether or not you liked her character in the show or not, I don't really understand where the hate towards her performance comes in, because I thought she actually did a really terrific job playing the character that she was supposed to be playing.
Yeah, I thought she was incredible.
Yeah, and then I think that also with young Leia, finding a really good kid actor is challenging, and it's even more challenging, I think, when you're trying to have kind of a pseudo father relationship with the father child relationship in a movie, trying to make sure there's like actual chemistry there. And Ewan McGregor did a spot on job. The two of them I think worked really well together. So I think and also I really loved the act, even though we knew that they were going to be reprising their roles already, when we saw them in episodes 2 and 3, I really did love the performances from Owen and Beru, because like the more I look at them in this show, they feel so much like the same characters that we see in episode 4. Even if they're not played by the same actors, they feel like the exact same character. I know a lot of people were kind of like saying that Owen seemed like he was more of a grumpy old kind of more mean father figure to Luke in episode 4, where in episode in Kenobi, he's a lot more, protective, and he actually has that line of saying that he is my own son type of a thing. But I never got that vibe in episode 4. I always got the vibe that he was strict, but it made sense. He wanted to make sure his son never, grew up to be like his father, essentially. And that's definitely the vibe you get in the show. Like, you still get that same vibe of him wanting to make sure his son, like, kind of being way too overprotective of his son, but it also not coming from a bad place. It definitely coming from a place of love. And I think you get that really well with Owen and Beru, personally.
Did you did you answer my question, Stuart? Though, should this have
Oh.
been a movie?
Oh, yeah. Sorry. That's I'm sorry. Yeah, you know what? I went on to this big rant about that.
The
All
characters,
that,
yeah, you got
yeah,
onto the characters,
sorry.
yeah. But
All
so
that
all
to
that to say
say
what?
that it would have been better if it was a movie, because the problems with this, I think, are in execution with how they tell the story, in the sense of everything feels way too padded. And I think that's probably my biggest concern, my biggest disappointment with the show, is that there feels like there's so much that happens in here that just kind of like drags at times. And I feel like a lot of it could have been cut, or several scenes really could have just happened all at once, instead of being, several different scenes.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with you there. I think while I enjoyed the idea of coming back weekly to go ahead and check out this show, I do feel like there's uh some extra filling, if you will, that they could easily have like edited and cut down, if you will, to certainly make things a little bit more tight and concise. Because there are definitely some scenes in here that I felt maybe dragged on a little bit too long, or just really long stationary shots. And I'm just thinking to myself, like, I just feel the momentum of this show could have been a lot better. Because I feel like when I watch this series as a whole, there are definitely some episodes that tend to be a little bit up and down. Sometimes the writing a little bit stronger than others, and so sometimes there are moments where I wonder, if Obi-Wan Kenobi had been a 2 hour and 15-minute movie or something like that, could you have told the story that you wanted to from this movie, from this series? And I think so. I think, like, there's even some dialogue in here that I don't think this series has too much dialogue. If anything, I almost kind of wanted a little bit more heft and like meat on the bone in regards to some of the conversations that we wind up having. So for me, I appreciate them trying to draw this out as a limited series, but for me, I would agree with you and say that this probably would have worked a little bit better than the movie. And it does make me question, Stuart, because Obi-Wan was originally supposed to be a movie when it was announced, and then they went ahead and decided to either rewrite the script or do something different and turn it into television. And it does make me ask the question or wonder if the idea of them doing a solo movie really frightened them out of doing Obi-Wan Kenobi. Because I want to say Kathleen Kennedy has recently come out and said one of the lessons that they've learned, which I think she's taken the wrong lesson, is the idea of they don't want to go back and revisit older characters and have them recast and things like that. And so there's a part of me that wonders if the failures of Solo and the pushback that Solo got, if that's why they went ahead and made Obi-Wan a series instead of a movie. And I think at the end of the day, it probably would have been better as a movie.
Yeah, I think like one of the issues with Solo that Disney somehow missed wasn't really the fact that wasn't just like, I think like the biggest thing that kind of set it back sales wise was when it was released, because I think Disney was trying really hard to push Star Wars to be the next Marvel, basically, and I don't think it was ever meant to be the next Marvel. I think like what they were doing initially when it started, one movie a year, was a good format to do it. But then when they had Solo come out, 5 months after The Last Jedi, and then The Last Jedi also, I think, being the one that kind of it got the casual viewers kind of annoyed with Star Wars, and not because of the movie itself. I think more just the fans arguing about the movie is kind of what got the casual viewers to just not care anymore. So I think when Solo came out, casual fans kind of looked at it as, we don't really need to see this movie for episode 9, so I'm just gonna go ahead and skip it. But and I think that could have gone away, like fatigue would have gone away if they had waited just, a few more months before releasing it, and they just released in December.
So even though we feel this could have been better as a movie, now that we've seen season 1 or the limited series and we walked away enjoying it, certainly, do you think that there should be a season 2? This series does take place 10 years after Revenge of the Sith. I think we've got what, 7 to 8 years maybe then from this to A New Hope, if you will. Do you think there's another Obi-Wan Kenobi series to be told? And do you think there's a season 2? Kathleen Kennedy has mentioned, if it's something the fans really want and there's a story to be told, we'll tell it. So do you think there's a story to be told, and would you like to see a season 2?
No, because like I mentioned with episode 3, Revenge of the Sith episode 3, not
Mhm.
Kenobi episode 3, the questions I had kind of felt like they were all answered in Kenobi. We know we know that he now can communicate with Qui-Gon Jinn. We know that he we know how he went from being a broken man to being the Ben Kenobi that we see in A New Hope. And oh man, there was like another one I had, but it completely slipped. But yeah, I feel like every question that could possibly have needed an answer, we got it all in this series. So I really don't see a need for season 2. But that said, I'm not opposed to getting more Ewan McGregor as Obi-Wan in other not Kenobi-centric Star Wars stories.
Gotcha.
So if you wanted to make like an appearance in Andor, I'm not opposed to that. Or any other shows that take place before A New Hope.
But as far as like a full-on story, you think his
Yeah,
main
not
story has been
interested.
told. I get you. I get you. I think this is probably one of the first things we'll probably disagree on here. In the sense that I actually probably would be open to a season 2 in a weird way. I mean,
Okay.
don't get me wrong. I am scratching my head here and thinking to myself, I have no idea what story I want them to be want to be told here, or what story there is to be told. But I just love freaking Ewan McGregor as Obi-Wan so much. Like, please just figure out a story. And I will say, look, there are some things in here for me that I do, for me at least, feel I would like more answers to, or inquiries about. Like, for instance, now that he has met Qui-Gon at the very end, I kind of want to see him training with him. One of the things that I loved about this series was getting the opportunity to see Obi-Wan in his own solitary time, trying to reach out and have those moments with his master and not being able to communicate with him. And so to kind of see him trying to reach back out to his master now that he has, I definitely want to see what those conversations are like as he's kind of in solitary, watching over the boy, if you will. Is he helping him train to become a Force ghost? How does that process certainly work? So that's one aspect. That's probably not enough to carry an entire season. But I also had an issue in regards to how the end of the Obi-Wan and Vader fight wind up ending. And it does make me wonder if they're while I do feel like there's a sense of closure for Obi-Wan here, I do wonder if it opens up more wounds in the sense that Vader is still certainly out there. And does he still carry some amount of failure with him? And I'm kind of skirting around my issue that I have, because I kind of want to hold off and wait to it, but I'll dive into it. The issue that I have is that while, yes, we know how episode 4 ends, Vader clearly alive, Obi-Wan alive until like the final act of the film. So these two characters are definitely alive by the time they get up to New Hope. I guess for me, the idea of seeing Obi-Wan walk away from that battle and leave Vader sort of intact, for me, I found as a very interesting writing choice by the writers, and a decision, right? Like, if you're going to have Obi-Wan walk away, there's a part of me that felt like the best time to have him walk away was maybe episode 5, when he actually escapes away from Vader and makes it clean. But the fact that they've battled and they've fought and he still walks away, leaving a much bigger threat to the galaxy, knowing that your one code as a Jedi is to keep the Sith down, and seeing what they're doing to the galaxy out there, there is a part of me that wonders if there is some guilt or questioning that Obi-Wan has now that he's left Anakin alive and he sees what he's doing to the galaxy. Like, I wonder how that sits with him a little bit. And so maybe there's a part of me that kind of wants to see that explored a little bit more. So that's why I think I would love to see a season 2, but I would get the idea if I just don't want them to force a season 2. You know what I mean? If
Mhm.
there's a great story there, then definitely tell it. But if there isn't, I don't want you to bring it back just because the fans say so. You know what I mean? Or ask for
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, I would definitely agree. Like, if there is a good story, like I'm not going to go into it closed minded and think that, oh no, I don't want a season two, so I'm not even going to watch it. Like, I'll definitely give it a fair chance and see how it is. The reason though the Vader fight actually didn't bother me quite as much, though, I think the reason him walking away didn't bother me is because to me that was kind of like the real moment where, even though he had his powers back, I don't think he fully accepted himself as a Jedi at that point yet, because
Mm,
there was still like all that regret. He still was there to, finally, kill Anakin and, finally feel that bit of closure within himself. But I feel like the moment Anakin or Vader says that you didn't kill Anakin, you didn't fail him, I did. That was kind of his moment of really feeling like the old Jedi Obi-Wan Kenobi again, and not wanting to give into kind of Vader. He just leaves him there, hoping, because I feel like at that point he kind of Vader knew he wasn't going to win. So he knew the only way he could get Obi-Wan to essentially, the only way he could get any kind of victory over Obi-Wan was to make Obi-Wan kind of cross the line that he doesn't normally do. He normally doesn't
mhm.
kill out of anger, kind of a thing. So his whole thing, like with that, was that, yeah, I don't want to give in to you. I don't want to like kill you because it would, satisfy you for your own satisfaction, essentially. So it kind of, like, I definitely see on a logistical standpoint why it was dumb that he let Vader alive, because now, like, I'm personally the kind of person that believes if you have a chance to stop something bad from happening, you don't take it, you are responsible for that. So every death that happens, between this show and Vader's death is 110% on Obi-Wan as well.
That's what I'm talking about.
So I do get that. Like, if we're looking at it in a logistical standpoint, yeah, that's bad. But when we're looking at it kind of in a Star Wars, the Force standpoint, to me, it kind of made sense.
And I totally get it. If I were to push back to that, the only pushback that I would make, and I mean, you make a good point, right? Like maybe at this point in time in Obi-Wan's life, he doesn't view himself so much as a Jedi, right? I mean, he literally told the Jedi who was asking for his help, like, no, the Jedi are over, right? And Homeboy wind up getting lynched for it at the end of episode one, sort of thing. But you know what? There's a part of me that's got to think to myself, look, Yoda at the end of episode 3 say the Sith must be destroyed, right?
Mhm.
He Obi-Wan wants to take on Palpatine. Yoda says, "No, I got him. You got to take care of Vader." Like that's on you at this point. Clearly, I understand that he thought he killed Anakin, you know what I'm saying? And this is the first time he's getting that opportunity to kind of see him once again. But I always felt at the end of the day, while yes, you are now protecting him and you're blocking yourself off away from the Force, if Yoda Master gave you an order to go ahead and kill the Sith and you've got that opportunity, especially now when his biggest obstacle was the idea of, I can't kill my friend. I don't want to kill Anakin. Even Reva calls him out in this season. Like, you want to kill Anakin, Obi-Wan? Like, I don't think you do. So when he gets the confirmation from Vader in here, in the sense that, don't worry, you didn't kill Anakin, I did. For me in my head, I would think Obi-Wan would be like, all right, guilt free. Now you're just a Sith to me. I need to save the galaxy. But I guess I get the idea of him maybe not referring to himself or thinking he's a Jedi or responsible for that. But for me, it's a little bit hard for me to think that he doesn't feel like there's a sense of responsibility that he still has, you know? Um, so that would be my only pushback. But I absolutely get what you're saying,
Yeah.
Stuart.
Or I'm going to reword kind of like how I said it, because I think it sounded a little differently than what I meant. What I meant was like the moment he saw that Vader killed Anakin, and realized he wasn't responsible for killing or for Anakin's downfall. It was actually Vader. I feel like he kind of knew at that point there was no way to kill him without doing it with anger, and that was like the
Mhm.
big thing, is that he
I
just
get you.
became a Jedi again, and he doesn't want to kill with anger.
I
Yeah.
get that. That makes sense to me for sure. Marcelino does say, I would be more open to a season 2 if the final battle was with Reva instead, and the final fight was with Vader was saved for season 2. That would have been an interesting turn of events. Yeah, I wouldn't have minded that either. He also says, we technically have 5 years if Obi-Wan gets more seasons. If what to ended for the events of Star Wars
Oh
Rebels
yeah.
ended. Yeah, because we do see him face off against Maul
This
in Rebels also.
Okay, this slightly off topic. I apologize, but it kind of reminds me of a funny complaint that fans are getting. That I will say this: you're objectively wrong if you complain about this. People are saying like, "Oh, if Obi-Wan's supposed to look like Alan Guinness in 9 years, he looks too young to like assume he's going to look like that." And my argument is, you're objectively wrong because Ewan McGregor is 53. Alec Guinness was 63, I believe, when they were filming A New Hope.
Oh,
A New Hope
wow.
takes place 9 years after Kenobi.
Yeah, so it's like right on point. Like, hey, just because Alec didn't age well, you know what I'm saying? Like, don't be
Yeah.
mad at Ewan for looking so damn good as Obi-Wan.
And I mean, he's on Tatooine, so let's
Yeah,
face it, the really bad conditions there are definitely going to make him age really
just
poorly in the
yeah,
next coming
just
years.
fry your skin out. In the words of Jar Jar Binks, this sun is doing murders to Misa's skin, you know? So yes, Obi-Wan is definitely battling two suns, to say the least, on Tatooine. Um, Last question I want to ask before we go into pros and cons real quick. Because a lot of fans were certainly worried about this. I was definitely concerned, especially after like was it episode 2 when Reva kills the Grand Inquisitor? People just go batshit crazy. No, they're gonna ruin Star Wars canon. Let me ask you, do you feel canon was kept intact after this?
Yeah. In fact, I actually kind of rewatched a good chunk of A New Hope, and yeah, I mean, as far as I could tell, there isn't anything to really contradict things that get said in A New Hope. My biggest thing is that yeah, now I have to look at Vader's dialogue a little bit differently because
Mm,
I always assumed his moment when he said the last time we faced, I was but a learner, now I'm the master. Now I have to realize that he's probably referring to the
that
moment where he
ass
thought
whooping.
he could get into Obi-Wan's head, and now he's realized that that's not a strategy he can use anymore. He's no longer going to be able to get into his head. You can kind of see that he doesn't really try that much. All he says is that you're old, but it's not like he's trying to get into his head. It's really more just him just kind of like telling him you're old, you're going to die or something. I don't know. So yeah, to me, it still fits into canon, I think, and it's not the first time something like that's happened. It's like in Episode 3, Revenge of the Sith, again, not Kenobi, Episode 3, when Anakin says, "My powers have doubled since the last time we fought." I always thought he was talking about
Mm,
Attack of the Clones,
mhm.
but they fought like a million times during the Clone War series, so clearly it was one of those random battles that he was referring to.
No, I absolutely get you there. Yeah, I think the Grand Inquisitor stuff certainly played itself out to
Mhm.
match up with Rebels. Um,
Which I knew it would. Everyone, okay, it bothered me so much how many people were complaining that he, died in Kenobi episode 2, right?
yeah.
And I'm just kind of like, it's Star Wars. No one dies from us. If someone can survive getting cut in half, the Grand Inquisitor can survive a simple stab. And yeah, as we see later on, that is the case, and which I knew it was going to be.
Poor Qui-Gon. I know Qui-Gon is pissed off. It's like, yo, you haven't ever all these other people survive a lightsaber plunge to the stomach. You can't let me live. Poor Qui-Gon. But yeah, no, I think the Grand Inquisitor stuff worked out great. Yeah, the canon stuff
Ooh.
between Vader and Obi-Wan certainly worked. And I even think the dialogue with Princess Leia and Obi-Wan still certainly holds up in A New Hope. I know that they spent a ton of time together in here, but I don't think anything that's said in A New Hope takes away from that, honestly. You said, ooh, what were you thinking, Stuart?
Um, Dang it, stupid bot. I
Oh,
was thinking of the moment from or what you mentioned about Qui-Gon,
uh-huh.
about him being like he must be kind of pissed that everyone gets revived. But I
Yeah.
will say this, if you read the novelization of Revenge of the Sith, there is kind of an interesting bit of dialogue from Dooku that if you really look into it, it would actually make a lot of sense of why Qui-Gon died after that,
Ah,
especially when you consider the fact that Dooku was Qui-Gon's master.
okay. I'll definitely have to check that. I'll definitely have to check that one out. But in regards to the Leia stuff, I did want to go ahead and bring this up and just kind of reread this in regards to people that had questions about the Leia and Obi-Wan thing. Because one of the biggest things that I think was getting pushback was the idea that in the message that we have from Leia to Obi-Wan in A New Hope, that they kind of come across in the sense that they don't know each other or that they've never been introduced to each other before. And so I wanted to go ahead and just kind of go over the hologram and the message that Leia wind up sending. This was from nerdist.com that I wound up finding. So this is the message. It says, General Kenobi, years ago you served my father in the Clone Wars. Now he begs you to help him in his struggle against the Empire. And we also got to remember, I think, in context here, Stuart, the situation that Leia finds herself in, right? I mean, literally right after Rogue One, you got Darth Vader and the Empire right on your trail. It's a quick message that you certainly got to deliver to somebody. And yet at the same time, it's a message that you know cannot get into the hands of the enemy. So referring to him in a very formal way, I have no problem with. I think that's perfect. General Kenobi, yada, yada, yada. She says, I regret that I am unable to present my father's request to you in person, but my ship has fallen under attack, and I'm afraid my mission to bring you to Alderaan has failed. I have placed information vital to the survival of the rebellion into the memory systems of this R2 unit. My father will know how to retrieve it. You must see this droid safely delivered to him on Alderaan. And this is the last part here. This is our most desperate hour. Help me, Obi-Wan Kenobi. You're my only hope. And so I love the fact that she is very much respectful to his message, or to him directly in the very beginning, General Kenobi. And I do think that that very last line is directly a message to Obi-Wan. Like, after watching this series and rereading this line, this feels very much like a very personal message, no longer referring to him as general, but now as Obi-Wan Kenobi, asking for him to help her. You're my only hope. And it makes me feel like, hey, of course she knows, because of the fact that he's helped her in the past directly. So for me, Stuart, I still think that this fits perfectly in line with canon.
Yeah, I would 110% agree with that.
So yeah, hopefully if there were any pushbacks against that, or I'm sure some people will still have their squabbles in regards to literally deciphering each little sentence that's being said. But for me, walking away from it, I think for the most part they did a really great job of keeping canon intact. Maybe there's some other things that maybe we missed that might throw off canon, but if there is, guys, let us know in the comment section box below. So yeah, let's go into it, Stuart. Let's talk about some characters in here, man. Some pros and cons. What are some of the pros about this series that you liked? Any character moments or whatever the case may be that you want to talk about that you really enjoyed?
I think like a lot of the pros I kind of got through when I was like talking about why it should have been a movie. But I'm trying to think if there's anything else that I can say without repeating myself. The biggest pro I think I got to say in terms of the production of this. So it's also kind of a con, because like a lot of times I feel like the level of special effects in this were incredibly unbalanced, because there are times where they looked absolutely incredible, but then other
The
times
special
where,
effects?
yeah, the special
Yeah.
effects, but then
Yes.
other times where they looked really bad. But I think the number one thing that looked incredible in the show was the lighting. I think this is
Oh
the
yeah.
best looking
Woo.
lighting they've ever used, both for not only like did it look cool with all the reflections, but I also love how there were a lot of times the lighting, had a purpose in a kind of I don't know
Mhm.
if metaphorical is the right word to use, but in like kind of a thematic kind of way, I
Mm.
guess you could say, especially with the final battle between like
Oh
Kenobi and Darth Vader, the way the
yeah.
lighting kept changing from red to blue based on the
Loved it.
dialogue,
Loved it.
amazing. Yeah. And I think again, I know I already said this, but performances all around, I don't think anyone really gave a bad performance. I love seeing the Rebel Alliance like barely start to form. Like they're not even a rebellion yet. Right now, all they're doing is just helping people in that kind of World War II kind of metaphor, like like the same way they did like during the Holocaust, of course,
Mm.
and you got that, but now in a galactic kind of point of view. And I think it's again really well done. It's not like so on the nose where it's like too obvious, but it's like there enough, like just like it was in A New Hope. You know exactly what it's a metaphor for, but it never feels like forced. No pun intended.
Yeah, man. First off, I want to give a shout out to Deborah Chow for doing an amazing job in here. There were maybe one or two episodes I was kind of like, I think she could probably do better work, and she definitely did so in like the majority of these episodes. Man, I was really impressed. So I definitely would love to see her tackle more Star Wars, because I would agree with you, man, especially in regards to just the lighting, like her techniques, especially when it comes to lightsaber battles. Like I think the idea of being able to film lightsaber battles, I gotta think that that takes, some special skill, man, to be able to really bring those lightsaber battles to life. And just even talking about the idea of lighting or even maybe lack thereof, like just getting the opportunity to see there's two scenes that really come out to me when it comes to lightsaber work in here. Well, three really. Obi-Wan when he saves Princess Leia from the prison and the lights go out and he ignites his lightsaber and chops down the two stormtroopers. I thought that was pretty cool with that being really like the only source of light. And then, of course, the Riva battle was incredible against Vader when it comes to lightsaber sequences. And then, yeah, the final battle between Vader and Obi-Wan, which just felt like it was ripped out of a painting. I mean, it was just so incredible just getting the opportunity to see them fighting really under moonlight and just with their lightsabers intact. I mean, it was just some incredible stuff. I will say this too. I love the fact that they allowed us to see Vader literally pulling a fucking starship out of the sky, bro.
Yes.
I feel like as a Star Wars fan, we've always wanted to see something that like that live action. Because it's funny because I don't know if people were complaining about this or like anytime I would see Riva trying to run after somebody or like after Kenobi or one of the starships, I'm thinking to myself like, man, I guess she just doesn't have the force strength or power to go ahead and pull these ships back down. And then we literally see Vader do that in episode 5, and it just blew me away, bro. I thought it was the coolest thing I ever seen. What'd you think about that scene?
I freaking love it because like we get those we get moments like that in the comic books and it's
And the
incredible.
video games and shit.
Yeah, the video games, but like we rarely get to really see how powerful a Jedi is in the movies because you're just limited you're limited on special effects and what you can show. Now I have a nitpick about the scene, and that is that I think that that's also one of the moments where the CG looked really bad. But at the same time, it was so cool what I was looking at to the point where I didn't really care how bad the special effects were. And just, the fact that the point of it was really just to show off how strong Vader has gotten over the years. And yeah, the part where not even just when he brings the ship back down, but when he's ripping it apart, it looked like something straight from like a Darth Vader comic book panel. It just, it looked, it really, there are ways that you can write Darth Vader to make him really feel like he's a horror movie villain. And that was definitely one of them.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with you. And just to kind of piggyback off of some of the special effects being off, for some reason, I think it was really visible to me kind of in that last episode when we've got the Star Destroyer flying after the ship that it's escaping, and just seeing it swerve back and forth, and then the escape ship coming down the ramp and leaving. It just looked really cartoonish to me. I don't know what happened with the starship design in this episode, but it definitely felt like the budget had been dropped or something. I don't know what happened, but it looked pretty bad. But overall, man, I thought like you said, great performances. I thought they actually did really good job at pulling out emotions, even though I felt like there was maybe still some emotions left in this series that I think they probably could have tackled a little bit more. But I thought they did some amazing performances, and I thought they handled the characters relatively well enough for me to feel like this was a pretty solid and quite enjoyable footnote in the Star Wars timeline. Did you have any other cons, Stewart? Some things that really bothered you about this series?
I do have a few cons. Okay, so con number 1, this is actually a nitpick, but then the next ones will be actual like critiques. But con number 1, while this might be bad for a Star Wars fan to say, I'm slightly glad that they didn't get James Earl Jones back to do Vader because I love the guy. He really made one of the most iconic villains ever.
They did though.
No, that was all computer effects, or it was
it?
an AI. Yeah, they had an AI doing his voice, and that's where my con comes in. Like, I get why they couldn't get him back because it has kind of his voice is aged. If you hear him as Mufasa, if you hear him as Vader in Rogue One, you kind of feel it. Even in Star Wars Rebels, his voice isn't what it used to be, and I hope that doesn't make me like an asshole for saying that, but I totally get why they didn't get him back for Vader. That said, I wish they hired an actor and not an AI. I don't like the idea of like using AIs to replace like, instead of characters. It's kind of like the same thing that they're doing now with the other Star Wars shows, like with Luke Skywalker, how they even did the same thing with his voice. Like his voice was an AI. I'm just not a fan of that personally.
I get you. I think it works for me. I don't mind it so much just because of the fact that it's Vader. and he's always had that kind of mechanical voice. Like if it's a human and you're trying to do that, then yeah, that kind of feels a little bit weird to me. But I think this is like the best that Vader has ever sounded. And so, but yeah, because I think it's because of the fact that it's AI and they're maybe taking back from A New Hope type of stuff. But I get what you mean though.
Yeah. But that said, that was a nitpick. My actual complaints. So starting from like kind of least complainable to like, but starting with Riva, like even though I do think that she did a good job, her performance was good. It really felt like her story was only there to pad out the show because it felt like at times very disconnected to everything that was going on around Obi-Wan. So with her storyline, I almost wish it was like it was a separate like movie or a separate TV show altogether, just with how disconnected, or if they were able to put that story, if they were able to blend it in with Obi-Wan's story a little bit more, I would have been more okay with it, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
Uh,
I think the biggest complaint, it sounds like the biggest complaint you have is that maybe they just didn't stick the landing.
yeah.
Because the reason why I say that, and I know you said you almost kind of wanted it to be separate, but I guess for me, when I watch it, I actually really enjoyed her story in here. And I actually think the confrontation that she has with Obi-Wan in episode 5 when she confronts them and they start talking about their stories, I kind of like the idea that for me, it kind of felt like it brought her story full circle in regards to why she's truly here as a part of the Obi-Wan Kenobi series. But I think the falter is redeeming her. And I almost feel like had they not redeemed her and just told her story and maybe ended her story here in this series, I think we would probably look at Riva's storyline in a completely different manner in the sense of saying, yeah, I think that kind of fits in here, especially if it's maybe Obi-Wan that's the one that chops her down and takes her out. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
So I think for me, her story fits better had they redeemed her. And I think some people will push back against that just because of her redemption. But I could be wrong. But yeah, continue. Go on. Go ahead.
I didn't mind her redemption. In fact, I think like she was the character that had like the redemption like aspect of her. Like, and in fact, I actually think thematically it worked really well, which may sound like I'm contradicting what I say, but I think like guys, it's kind of hard to explain. I think it's because she was so separate from Obi-Wan, and like the last time she had seen Obi-Wan, Obi-Wan literally used her pretty much. Because there's no way Obi-Wan actually thought she stood a chance against
No,
Vader. Literally,
no.
she was just a distraction for him. So it's kind of
Mhm.
weird when he came back and he's like, "I'm proud of you. I knew you wouldn't like step into the dark side." It's weird to me that she wasn't like, "You tried to have me killed so you could
I mean,
escape."
maybe
You
he's
know?
just impressed. Like, wow, you survived that shit.
Yeah.
I'm impressed, girl.
I don't know. I just feel like it could have been tweaked a little bit better as overall. Like you said, like the execution was over. They didn't stick the landing as well as I wish they had. Um, and then also, okay, so then the episodes 4 and 5, I think, is where it really felt like you had one episode or like half an episode's worth of story going on, but they really forced that to expand longer than it
Mm.
needed to. And that was where it really cemented my overall thought of this needed to be a movie, not a TV show.
Yeah, I felt that. I felt that heavy in episode 4 for sure. 5 worked for me. I thought it was probably one of my better episodes, and I thought they at least ended this series pretty strong in episode 5 and 6. But I think when I got to episode 4, I definitely was feeling that too, Stuart. I definitely was. So I would certainly agree with you there also.
Yeah, and I mean, obviously Inquisitor, and she was probably tormented way worse than she was like tormenting Leia. But it's so weird. We're supposed to look at this like this is dark because she's trying to get information from Leia, but it really kind of came off as silly because like just the way she was kind of interrogating Leia in
Interrogating the
episode
kid.
4,
Yeah.
but she was interrogating her as if she was an adult. It was supposed to come off as dark, but it really came off as silly, unfortunately, in
Yeah.
execution.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with you. One, I was like, I've seen this already. Leia in the prison being interrogated. I've seen this before. But yeah, I'm just like Riva. just smack the fuck out of her. Just smack her. She's a little kid. Like, come on, just get the answers that you absolutely need. So yeah, there were definitely some hiccups when it comes to Reva, but I think for the most part, I really enjoyed her. I think Moses Ingram certainly brought it. There's something about her level of commitment, motivation, determination to go ahead and bring in Obi-Wan. Like the fact that she had that level of commitment was actually one of my favorite things about her. And then to kind of see how her plan unravels in the sense that she's simply doing this to get closer to Anakin so she can go ahead and exact her revenge a little bit. I really appreciated at least the motivations that she certainly had in this series. And so when I do get to the final episode and we do get to her redemption arc, I'm just thinking to myself, like, you just interrogated a little kid. You chop somebody's hand off here in this episode in Tatooine earlier on in here. I'm sure you've been hunting down Force sensitive kids for years now in an attempt to try and find Obi-Wan. Like the levels of destruction and murder that Reva and the other Inquisitors have gotten into. You know, the idea that we kind of come to this point and then all of a sudden you see you're betrayed and all of a sudden you see Luke Skywalker and now you feel some type of way. For me, it just felt like way too quick of a turn, that it really didn't. I felt like it almost didn't lead up to too much, besides the fact that, like, you took your shot at Vader, you came up short, right? And so there's a part of me that felt like if she still felt some type of way about Obi-Wan, I thought the direction would be, well, then I'm going to find Luke and I'm going to go ahead and certainly take him out. And instead of her deciding not to do it, I really would have liked to have seen Obi-Wan kind of actually stop her. It like if her main mindset and thought was, am I turning into Anakin, right? Like, am I just becoming the person that Anakin was when he killed us, you know, at chopping down these kids and these younglings. And oh my God, now I can't come to terms with this because I'm turning into him. Girl, you were turning into him months ago. Okay. You were turning into him before we even got into this particular series. So it just wasn't enough for me, at least, to kind of see any pushback against her, with the exception of the Obi-Wan dialogue that they had between each other. Outside of that, I just did not expect Reva to have a redemption story. And I just feel this is kind of a Disney-fied aspect here that we get, that they just don't want to kill people off and let them redeem themselves and give them, like, you can showcase hope in any other ways. But I also think there are very valuable lessons in failure, and doing the wrong thing and maybe learning from those mistakes, that really kind of go a long way. And, you know, look, when you're trying to cross the path of Darth Vader, some people die, bro. It's okay. It's okay, Disney. So I did have my issue with that, though. Any other cons that you had?
No, I think that's pretty much the good majority of them. I might think of some later, but yeah.
Yeah, for me, and this might be a nitpick, I wasn't the biggest fan of Owen and Beru scene at the end. The idea of them all of a sudden becoming fighters, like, Beru, just serve your milk, please. Just serve your blue milk. Like, there was no inkling in A New Hope that this chick was like this badass, right? Like, she's giving orders to Owen, like, we gotta scout tonight. Like, what are you talking about, Beru? Like, it really bothered me that all of a sudden now they're like warriors.
Well, to me, it was like they really wanted to protect their kid, and the biggest thing is that Reva was injured, and that's why, like, the way I look at the fight is like the same way I look at the Finn Kylo Ren fight. You know, they really go out of their way to show you that Kylo Ren was injured when he was fighting Finn, and that's the only reason Finn and Ray were able to go toe to toe with him. And I kind of think of that the same way as Reva. Like, they really, like, you even see Owen taking advantage of her injury and trying. Yeah,
I get
so that's
that.
kind of my headcanon of how to justify, you know.
I get it. But I feel like, and that's the issue. And it's not just with you, Stuart. It's even with myself. Like, when I have to create headcanon to fill in something, that's when I feel like something feels off about this.
Fair enough.
You know? And so, like, for me, it's like, bro, you got a lightsaber. Owen is just hitting you with a stick, bro. Just, I mean, come on. I don't care how injured you are. You can't do this with your lightsaber. So it just really bothered me, bro. It just really bothered me. Maybe that's a nitpick on my side, though, in regards to it. But other than that, I just felt sometimes the writing was a little bit inconsistent, and there was some aspects in regards to the dialogue I wanted to see a little bit more on, right? Like I felt like there were plenty of conversations and moments for Obi-Wan and Vader to really talk and bring some issues and struggles kind of to the forefront that they're going through. Like I get the idea of Vader seeing Obi-Wan for the first time and literally dragging this man through coals. Like there's no words to be said. I get it, bro. You hate this man. I completely agree. But in that final battle, there is something about maybe me wanting a little bit more back and forth. You know what I mean? Like I was
Mhm.
always under the impression that there was a side of Obi-Wan that believed that there was still good inside of Anakin. And I never felt like he attempted to reach out and pull that good out of him. You know what I mean? Like I get the idea that he accepts, hey, Anakin is gone, Vader is here, but because even Vader, I think in the trilogy mentions to Luke or somebody like, Obi-Wan once thought as you did in the sense of there was still good in me. I guess I didn't get that sense from Obi-Wan that he really tried to make sure there was still good in Anakin. Did you get that from him here in this series though?
I mean, I did. I feel like it was I think it felt like to me like he knew words weren't going to be enough, and
Enough.
so I think that it was like the whole thing was that it was like he knew he had to keep him down more than anything first, and yeah, the moment. And that's what I kind of think was cool about the battles. I feel like even though there wasn't a lot of exchange going on, I feel like there was almost like a lot of unspoken dialogue just in the way that they fought with each other.
Absolutely.
And to me, I think I preferred that to the back and forth to the idea of having back and forth dialogue.
And I think that's another reason why I push the emphasis of, can I get a season 2? Because I do
Mhm.
feel like there's meat still left on the bone of a good, solid story that you can tell, especially between these two. But I would agree with you because I even wrote in my notes, a lot of this series emotions came from expressions and not so much dialogue, but it was already just so emotional, and the emotion in this really did add to the gravitas and the weight and the importance of not only this series but these battles also. So I would agree with you. Again, if I had my way, maybe I would have added a little bit more dialogue to emphasize that. But I agree, there is something about the weight and the expression that really takes over with these battles and the moments that these two wind up sharing on screen. So I definitely would agree with you there.
I definitely appreciate Disney for showing some restraint during the battle when Vader was standing over Obi-Wan.
Yes.
I know
Yes.
for a fact everyone probably wanted
I
him to
was
say, "I have the
waiting.
high ground."
I was
I'm
waiting.
so glad he didn't because it didn't need to be said.
Did it?
Every fan knew what he was thinking at that moment, and they didn't need to say anything.
Didn't need to say a damn thing, man. But yeah, overall I enjoyed it, man. I thought they had I think the performances in here really helped carry this. The directing by Deborah Chow was incredible. Some really emotional and weighty stuff. Again, I do think that some things were certainly left on the bone, and some things hopefully we get the opportunity to explore a little bit more. But if this is it, I'm extremely satisfied with what we got, and I'm pretty happy with it in overall. And I hope there's a place to kind of bring back Ewan McGregor.
Mhm.
I hope there's a place to bring back Vader. One of the things I will say, I love the sequence of the helmet getting cut in here.
Yes.
Just to kind of bounce off the idea of not only seeing the lighting, but also just seeing Anakin.
Mhm.
And there's a really cool shot too, because I think they might have even changed out his contact lenses based off of the color also, because he had that like Revenge of the Sith eye whenever it was red. And I was like, oh, I was just goosebumps the entire time. But I I I love the fact of how they represented Vader in here. Um, um, and really get an opportunity to see just how much real estate Obi-Wan still has in this man's head, how much hatred that he certainly has for him, and just the idea of them having that back and forth dialogue when his helmet was cracked. There's a brief scene in here that was just so chilling to me, like when he tells Obi-Wan, "I killed Anakin." I can't tell or not, but it just feels like there's this sinister smirk on
There
his
was.
face, right? Like he's
What
just
I
so satisfied and happy with not only the fact that he's killed Anakin, but that he's delivering that news to Obi-Wan. You know what I mean?
Yeah, my favorite thing was like Obi-Wan looking at, what Vader is, and
His
and then
eyes just
Anakin, or
welling
sorry,
up.
Vader realizing in that moment that, the pain that Obi-Wan has caused him, as much as it hurts him, it hurts Obi-Wan 10 times worse,
Mhm.
and the moment he realized that, that was when you could see that smirk. And I loved it.
I love
That
it.
was like, that was the moment Vader realized he couldn't win the battle physically. The only thing he
Mm.
could possibly do was get into Obi-Wan's head. And so he knew smiling and telling him that he happily killed Anakin. That was like his moment of trying to get into Obi-Wan's head, and I thought it was like absolutely amazing.
Yeah, man, and just Ewan's reaction as Obi-Wan, just the welling of
Yeah.
the tears in his eyes, man, it's just like, oof, man, just thinking about it again. I almost want to go back and watch the episode again. I've watched it like 3 times already. I might go back and watch it again.
Okay, on that note, actually, so here's the other thing, issue I have with it not being a movie, and just the way it is that before we did this review, I wanted to go back and watch maybe an episode or two, just to kind of
I almost
refresh
wanted to
myself,
rewatch
right?
the whole season. I almost did. Almost
Yeah,
did.
but I didn't feel motivated to. What I did feel motivated to do is go back and rewatch certain scenes. But the
Mm.
fact that, because it's just again, the pacing of the show is just not very good. The momentum is really bad. I feel like anytime I go back and watch it, I'm going to be very selective. I don't see myself ever watching this all 6
As a
episodes
whole, I
as a
got you.
whole again.
No, I totally get you there. I totally understand that. But yeah, man, I thought everybody did a fantastic job. I think Ewan showcased Obi-Wan great. His journey and struggle with his failure and guilt was just super evident. And just even love seeing his struggle trying to contact with his master and stuff. I just thought he was a perfect representation of where Obi-Wan was certainly at in his life at that moment. And I thought everybody really crushed it, especially even Princess Leia. Last question I will ask in regards to this, Stuart, if you were to see any spin-offs come out of this, do you think there are any spin-offs, or do you think we leave this as is and just tell either some other stories? What do you think? Do you think there's any spin-off potentials out of this?
I feel like Riva definitely has the potential for a spin-off series.
I almost don't want to see
The
one now.
I mean, that's fair, but like the big thing that because when it comes to like villains that have like killed people, like which I'm sure I can't remember if we've seen her kill people on screen besides the Inquisitor, but I'm pretty sure it's safe to say with her being an Inquisitor, she's definitely killed innocent people. The thing is, when those type of characters get redeemed, it's almost always followed by death, because where do you go after a character like that gets redeemed? It's not like you can just have them walking around and having people being okay with that. So I feel like that would be the next interesting story that you could tell, is like, where is she now that she's not only turned back to the light side, but the fact that she can't take away anything that she's done. How does she go about the rest of her life? So I think there's a story to be told there.
Yeah, like the idea of like atoning for your sins.
Yeah,
The
exactly.
idea of that's a cool concept. I probably wouldn't mind seeing something along those lines, because for me, while I really enjoyed Reva's character moments up until the redemption. I think Moses Ingram did a fantastic job in here, man, and props to her for being such an incredible actor. Maybe I would be open to it. Maybe if it was a solid story, maybe I'd be open to it. But then I'm just like, man, how many Jedi are truly running around during this time period? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I was kind of expecting maybe a Cal Kestis cameo from Jedi Fallen Order. There was a part of me that was also maybe hoping for an Ahsoka pop up in here to maybe save Luke kind of last minute. But yeah, so any other outside of Reva, you have any other spin-offs you think, or no, just her?
No, I mean, I think I don't really know what other things you could do to spin off with this show specifically, but I mean, like, if you had again Obi-Wan reappearing in other Star Wars shows like Andor or anything else that'll take place in that time period, I think I would definitely be more than happy to see that.
Yeah, I think if I had to pick a spinoff that I would love to see, and I think I talked about this in my final review, I actually would not mind seeing a Darth Vader spinoff.
Mm.
I know that that might bother some people in regards to like, no, don't mess with Darth Vader. But I honestly think that they've handled him relatively well in the moments that we've seen him in live action, from Rogue One to here in Obi-Wan Kenobi. And I think there could be a story to tell, in a sense that I've highlighted the book before, Lords of the Sith. um, I think I still have it somewhere. I don't know where I put my book at. Oh, here it is. Lords of the Sith. If you guys really want to find out more about Vader's time after Revenge of the Sith, definitely go ahead and check this out. I think this is 5 years after Revenge of the Sith, and then so this definitely Obi-Wan definitely takes place after this. But I think this would be a great novel to go ahead and adapt. It really gives us a much better understanding of the struggle and the battle between Anakin and Darth Vader. And if he mentions, hey, you know, I killed Anakin, I think that would be a really great story to kind of showcase if they certainly want to. It doesn't even have to necessarily be an adaptation of that, but I kind of would like to see the relationship between Palpatine and Vader and how he just the mind games and the torture and whatever he needs to do to get into the head of Vader to keep him under his will and in his power. I kind of want to see that struggle that Vader is kind of going through a little bit more, especially after seeing this. But that's just me. I could get some pushback if people don't necessarily want to see something like that just because of how maybe Star Wars has handled things recently. But that would be my spinoff.
Yeah, I think there's potential for it. It would be, I feel like a Vader movie would be difficult to write because Vader works best in small doses, to my opinion. But it is possible. It would just be a challenge, you know?
Yeah, I get it. Even the idea of maybe a 6-episode arc for Vader, I think that might be even maybe doing it a little bit too much. You know what I mean? But oh, and Marcelino did say Reva killed a rebel pilot. Also, that's right. She threw that.
Okay.
The grenade or whatever, the bomb. Yeah, other than that, guys, I think that's pretty much everything for the most part in regards to our thoughts on Vader. Both of us, or Vader on Obi-Wan Kenobi, both giving Stewart, you graded this series a B-, certainly enjoying it. Yeah, I'll give it a B-. You know what? I'll give it a B- too, Stewart. I think I'm going to stick with you on that as well. So we'll see if we get ourselves a season 2, ladies and gentlemen. I would certainly be curious to know what you guys think. And again, based off of all the discussion topics that we certainly talked about in here, definitely go ahead and let your thoughts be known in the comment section box below after this particular video airs. I think the next season of Star Wars that we have, Stewart, is going to be Andor, that I believe drops this upcoming August. So definitely go ahead and stay tuned for that, guys. And I definitely will be doing reviews for you guys around here. So if you loved our Star Wars content, our discussions, our reviews, hit that subscribe button, guys. It really does go a long way, along with that like button, and definitely continue to come back for more. But Stewart, if people do want to go ahead and find you on social media, where can they find you, sir?
You guys can follow me on Twitter and on Instagram at TurboStew01.
Awesome, man. And yeah, guys, don't forget to go ahead and subscribe. If you haven't joined our Discord forum community, go ahead and certainly do so. There is a link in the description box below. Yeah, guys, if you have any other questions, certainly go ahead and submit them over to aplusopinions@gmail.com, and we'll definitely get to them on A Plus Hero Report. But until next time, guys, do us a big favor. As always, take care of yourselves, take care of each other, and keep it A+. May the Force be with you. We'll talk to you later. Bye.